Nearly half of the voters in this general election will be women. And while there has been a huge jump in turnouts of women voters over the years, in the Lok Sabha, only 12% of MPs are women. That's right, just 12%. Across India, there are only 9% of women who are either MPs or MLAs. Now, everyone talks about having greater representation of women. In fact, both the Congress and the BJP have been championing the Women's Reservation Bill, which seeks 33% quotas in Parliament and state assemblies. Mind you, that bill was first tabled when I was in college. That was 23 years ago. Today, Rahul Gandhi promised not just to pass that bill if the Congress came into power, but to reserve government jobs for women as well. Just a few days ago, the Trinamool Congress announced that it would give 41% of its tickets in the Lok Sabha to women, and the BJD said it's doing the same at 33%.
One of the things that we've decided, in 2019, we're going to pass the Women's Reservation Bill in Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabhas, and we're also going to reserve 33% of all government jobs at the national level for women. I think generally women are smarter than men. That's where I come from.
Well, joining us on the program tonight, we have Aishwarya Mahadev, the spokesperson of the Congress, China NC of the BJP, joins us from Mumbai. Pinaki Mishra, our Lok Sabha MP of the BJD, is with us. Columnist Namita Bhandari and Smita Prakash, the editor of ANI, joining us this evening. I'm going to take this question to Namita Bhandari first, because you've done so much work on this issue over the years, Namita Bhandari. And, you know, everyone talks about giving women greater representation, like I said, but haven't really walked the talk when it comes to ticket distribution. However, this time, the BJD and the TMC have made an important start by at least giving a certain number of tickets to women.
Considerable number of tickets, I'd say 33%, of course, for Parliament, not for the assemblies. And 40% by the TMC is not a small, this is not tokenism. This is really putting your money where your mouth is and walking the talk, to use two cliches, back to back. And I think the reason is not that difficult. You know, it's as you pointed out, you have a changing demographic of the women voters. You have, in the last election, 13 states and union territories where more women actually outnumbered the male voter. And I think this is a recognition of this changing demographic, of this growing power of the women, of women, that political parties are, to use a third cliche, waking up and smelling the coffee.
Well, you know, I'm just wondering how much, you know, coffee they're able to smell. I'm just going to do a little plug here. This is Pranoy's book, The Verdict, which is about the elections. And there's a chapter here on the rise of women voters. And it has an interesting statistic, Smita Prakash, that when you look at the turnouts of women voters in Lok Sabha elections, it's jumped from 46.7% in 1962 to 65.5% in the 2014 elections. And yet, Smita, when you look at just, you know, how political parties, the kind of candidates they fielded, it was actually the AAP at just under 13% of tickets that, you know, that were distributed to women, which was in the lead. I mean, the BJP women candidates were about 8.5%, the Congress just a little bit more than that at 11%. This was the last general election, Smita.
That's because women don't necessarily vote for women. I'm sure Pranoy's written that in the book too, that when they go out to vote, it's not necessary that they think that women will do their job for them. You know, they might think, you know, because of conditioning, many women tend to think that the Karta Dharta is of like a house, the Karta Dharta is a male. Similarly, in government or in bureaucracy or whatever, it's going to be men who are decision makers, men who will deliver. It's a conditioning. At some point of time, women will start believing that women, when they are voted to power, they are able to deliver more as far as administration is concerned. There's a UN report which has come out on this, that they are able to build more, they are able to complete their work more, there's less chance of them being corrupt, there's less chance of them being criminals. So, you know, these kind of things, once it starts seeping into the mind of women, then they might vote for women more than they vote for men. But that's not necessarily the factor when it comes out to giving tickets. Like it is the winnability factor, you know, that big thing about winnability. Men tend to think that women don't have a winnability factor, and that is why they don't give seats, they don't give tickets to women candidates. But that is going to change, because there are more and more men who are figuring out that women are smarter, just like I think what Rahul Gandhi, when he went to that college and there were all those girls sitting out there and he announced it. I don't know whether it was spur of the moment announcement or he thought, and he has thought of this as to how he is going to deliver on this, or it's just another election jumla which everybody, all politicians do that. They promise mandir banayenge, kaise banayenge, nobody knows. They promise 33%, kaise karenge, nobody really knows. So one really needs to see how they will carry this forward.
Well, interesting. And Pinaki Mishra, you know, Smita Prakash, they're talking about the issue of winnability of candidates, and that perhaps political parties don't find a lot of women candidates winnable. Now, clearly, the BJD sees something different because you all have announced a 33%, that 33% of your tickets in the Lok Sabha will go to women. So what prompted that?
You know, Nidhi, firstly, you know, I'm one in a entire panel of ladies here. I hope this is not a precursor of things to come in the future.
I hope it is.
Yes, what's wrong with that?
More and more like it. on a lighter note, but on a more serious note, you know, I really think that what Naveen Patnaik ji has done is extraordinary, and of course then Mamta ji has followed suit. But you have to remember that Naveen Patnaik for the first time brought in 50% reservation for women in the Panchayati Raj system, which is Father Biju Babu was the first to bring in 33%, and then Naveen Patnaik brought in 50%, and that's the bedrock that that Naveen Babu is so confident of. There is actually such a solid bedrock of women now in Orissa, both at a leadership level as well as at a worker level, and of course at the voter level, that he feels so confident that this empowerment is a thing, that the time has come for this empowerment to take place. You know, for the last 4 terms that he's been in power, women have been the solid bedrock of his support. Everybody knows that. All his pro-poor policies are really policies which have helped women better their lives, better their families, better their society around them, better their villages. It's always been the women who've appreciated it much more. It's the women, therefore, who've been a much more loyal support base of Naveen Babu. And he's always wanted to give it back to them in some way or the other, that I must empower my women, I feel very sorry when sometimes all kinds of unsubstantiated, innuendos are cast about one incident here or one incident there. The BJP is very quick to seize on it. Of some, not little, some of them, these incidents are very sorry incidents. But Naveen Babu's, outreach to the women has been so extraordinary, and now it's typified by this very bold step he first took, saying, I'm going to give you 33% women for parliament. And he's told all the parliament MPs as well that they must have now more than at least one candidate in every parliament seat, perhaps 2. So we might even go up to something like 25, 27, 30% even in assemblies, which is extraordinary. There's no reason why the other parties can't do it.
That would be something if you're able to replicate it at a significant level at the assembly level too. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Shaina NC, just to ask you,
it's his mindset.
Yeah. So firstly, what has prevented the BJP from getting the women's reservation bill through all these years? I mean, 23 years is a pretty long time, and I'm going to ask the Congress the same thing. But I don't think anyone would have had a problem in the Rajya Sabha either this time.
So Nidhi, here's my answer. I'm on your debate first and foremost only because it's on women's reservation, because I feel that 50% of the electorate has been overlooked for the longest time. The fact that we have only 11% representation in parliament and a dismal 9% in assembly does not speak well for any political party. Now, whether it's the Congress from 2010 to 14 that could have or should have had a woman president, let's not get into that, or the BJP vis-a-vis wanting more candidates. So I would like to compliment Mamta ji and Mr. Naveen Patnaik both for giving women a reservation irrespective of whether a reservation is actually implemented or not. And the reality is, yes, this place of politics is male dominated. A lot of times women, before giving them tickets, the question is, oh, will she be able to win? Will she be able to spend? Will she be able to fight properly? And if not, give her a constituency that nobody else wants. Gone are those days of tokenism. We don't want this compassion anymore. We are competent, we are hardworking, and we are talented. So I think that the people of this country must vote for women candidates, because this is not just about me talking about my party and saying that yes, there is 33% reservation in organizational posts. That's why people like myself are women treasurers, which has never happened in the history of the party. But that is only one aspect. When it comes to electoral politics, there is a male-dominated space where there is an insecurity ki, "Arey, ye to aa jayegi, to hum kat jayenge." That kind of a mindset. And today, even when Mr. Rahul Gandhi said that he wants to have women's reservation, I want to ask, which are the leaders who have walked the talk? Because we've been hearing this for the longest time across the board, across every political party.
China, can I just
so
ask you?
Actually, Mamata Banerjee and Mr. Patnaik have set the way.
Sure. And would you like to see your own party give, a certain number of seats to women and pledge that? I'm going to ask the Congress the same thing. Would you like to see the BJP president actually saying, yes, we'll give at least 30% of tickets to women this time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think every woman leader across her political ideology and thought process, and that's why I'm on your debate today, must do the same. This is about us seeking a representation because our voices are not heard when it comes to women's issues, and when we realize that women are a 50% vote bank, we will all be taken far more seriously. So it's not about me versus somebody else. It's about everyone fighting together for a common cause.
Good. And I think it's great that you have said, that's what you would like your party to do as well. And so Aishwarya Mahadev of the Congress, would you expect the Congress to do the same? I mean, it's great when Rahul Gandhi stands up and says, we'll get the women's bill passed if we voted to pass. And now he's promised, women reservations in government jobs. Firstly, where is the scope for that? What is the plan? I mean, there is a reservation for everybody in government jobs right now. So where is this reservation for women going to come from? Is it implementable? Is it doable? How is it going to work?
Okay, first and foremost, that the Congress president and also the former Congress president have always stood by the fact that women's reservation has to come in. During our term, you also understand what happened where the allies walked out and the bill wasn't allowed to pass. However, unfortunately, since 2014, even though the BJP's manifesto said women's reservation, they didn't even allow the lapsed women's reservation bill to be reintroduced for discussion and just say these legislators or parliamentarians can decide. First part. So what did the Congress party do? The Congress party, under the Mahila Congress President Ms. Sushmita Dev, sent memorandums to every single state Congress unit and states where we have chief ministers. Captain Amrinder recently passed a resolution even in the assembly saying that there will be 33% allocation of women, and that is going through the subsequent change in the state legislation. And all other states have had this memorandum being sent in, and that is what is happening. Second, Nidhi, let us talk about constitutionally. You realize that the constitution allows any form of positive discrimination for not only disadvantaged but also women. Right? If I'm not wrong, Article 16, or maybe I'm wrong on that, but it is also something that is allowed, that there's enough political will to push it through, it will happen. But the Congress has been very proactive and memorandums have been sent in, and I'm very sure and certain that far more women are going to come out. And the simple fact remains, Nidhi, that if you give enough seats, it's no longer tokenism, because you have a stake of the number of seats and MLAs you're going to have. For example, of 40% or even 33% means that there is a strategic number that can swing a majority for you.
But Aishwarya, my question is, why, like China says, yes, she wants to see her party announce that we're going to give 30% of our tickets to women. So why shouldn't the Congress do that at the central level? It's great that Captain Amrinder Singh has talked about it in Punjab, but why not for the Lok Sabha?
The Congress has already spoken to all the PCCs about allowing 33% or even more for women's tickets.
At the central level, I'm not talking about the state level. Why doesn't the Congress just pledge that we will ensure that if there are, 500 seats we are contesting from, 30% of those will be women?
Then I'm sure that is something that will come out recently, like very soon in the manifesto or the promise post the 16th, which I'm not privy to. But if that happens, that would be absolutely wonderful, I must say.
And how are you going to keep this promise of, women getting reservations in government jobs? That was my other question.
That is what I'm saying, that constitutionally you are allowed to empower and also create allocations for certain sections. There are SC, STs and the minorities, and you also see that women also are allowed to have positive discrimination in their favor. And that is something where reasonable classification legally will allow you to do so. So if I believe politically that when we come into power that they want to implement it, then that is something that we can look at and can be made feasible in the framework of empowerment for women.
Well, Namita Bhandari, what do you think of this reservation sort of idea that Rahul Gandhi floated today? Is it workable, or do we need to actually start with things which are doable, like giving tickets?
I'll tell you something, Nidhi. It doesn't matter whether you have reservation or not. My opening remarks were that the voter demographics have changed, and it would be a very foolish party that does not recognize this, that does not recognize the power of this voter. This is not a voter who's any longer happy with a bindi packet or a pressure cooker. This is a voter who is asking, this is a voter that is looking at politicians' records. You know, coming back, for instance, to the BJD. The BJD is has built from 2001, or has encouraged, has created an ecosystem of a very active self-help group. You have 7 million women in the self-help group system. And, you know, in November, the Chief Minister said, I'm going to give you 6 lakh free smartphones. He has talked of zero interest loan to these women. So 7 million women together collectively are a very powerful force. So reservation or no reservation, these are women who are going to look at candidates and who are going to say, well, this candidate is walking the talk on women's reservation, is giving fair. You know, it is ridiculous that you have 12%. In this day and age, you have had 1 million women going through the various layers of the panchayat and the local governance bodies. Are you telling me that none of these 1 million are capable of having reached the assemblies or reached parliament?
No, so that's why I want to come back to the point
Yes.
Smita Prakash made earlier, and I want to take that to Pinaki Mishra, which is that what explains then, Pinaki Mishra, the fact that you are seeing a higher and higher turnout of women, greater women's participation over the years in every general election that has gone up, with women, as Pranoy points out in his book, and yet you only see 12% of MPs in the Lok Sabha are women. So what is it just misogyny, or is it that, as Smita said, that perhaps it's just that women are not necessarily voting for women?
You know, let me just quickly first compliment Namita Bhandari for facts and figures with regard to the women empowerment program that Naveen Patnaik's outreach has helped. She is of course helped by the fact that her father-in-law was one of the most popular governors that Orissa has had, and she spent some time in Orissa and seen it firsthand. So therefore, she is well equipped to talk about it. But direct answer to your question, I believe it's the man in the saddle. I believe it's a lack of political will. We were very disappointed, Nidhi, because, you know, once Mr. Naveen Patnaik had the Orissa Assembly pass a unanimous resolution, by the way, that the Parliament must pass this constitutional amendment now. Mr. Rahul Gandhi then instructed all his chief ministers to do the same thing. This bill is this constitutional amendment bill has been passed by the Rajya Sabha. All it has to do is see a passage in the Lok Sabha. It requires bipartisan support. It has bipartisan support. I thought it could have been done within 15 minutes in the last session of Parliament. They actually brought the 10% reservation for economically weaker sections, if you remember, and had it passed within 2 hours. This could have been done in 15 minutes. 1/2 of the states would have done it. We would have had it for this very election. Because the Election Commission, all it has to do is a mechanical 1, 4, 7, 10, 13 kind of reservation. Again, they would have done it in a day. So therefore, we could have had this reservation thanks to the initiative taken by Naveen Patnaik in November. We could have had it in the last session of Parliament. I know the BJP didn't want to do it because they met with stiff resistance. We know this in Central Hall. There was a lot of talk. Will this be brought? Will it not be brought? The BJP's large cache of men MPs from Uttar Pradesh were up in arms, and it's very unfortunate. On another program, Shaina NC actually had the courage, and she made bold to say that she's very disappointed that the party didn't really go the extra mile and walk the talk, and I applauded her for it, because really they should have. This was a time, I think that the idea is such that its time has come now. Naveen Patnaik showed the way. The BJP could have easily done it this time. They didn't do it. They missed an opportunity. But I believe the next Parliament, this will be one of the first pieces of. This will be one of the first pieces of legislation that will be passed.
Shaina, sort of the inner sabotage in the party that Pinaki Mishra is talking about, and you're being pretty frank, because it's an issue that matters to you. How do you counter that? How do you overcome that?
Well, I think that every woman in the public space needs to fight, because there are competent women who are just not daughters, daughter-in-laws, or belonging to a political legacy. There are simple women who come from humble backgrounds who want representation. And for every political party to understand that yes, there are these spaces that need to be occupied by women in the organization and electorally is something that every political party can do. So we need to keep that pressure going. We need to keep that pressure going across the board. If every political party chooses to give women candidates, the parties that are left out will actually be ostracized for doing so. And look at the Southeast Asian countries, Nidhi. I mean, it's phenomenal the kind of representation you have in a country like Pakistan vis-a-vis India. So it's an apology of a situation where every manifesto has women's reservation as a priority and nobody walks the talk. So I think that we need to do away with this male mindset. We need to do away with men believing that it is their fiefdom and their space, because women are a vote bank. And the moment you view us as a vote bank, I would also like to say at this juncture, our Prime Minister has done some fantastic things, whether it's triple talaq for Muslim women or Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, or 33% in organizational posts. But we want the same for elections too. Why shouldn't we be given that opportunity based on our competency? And I think the days are gone where we want to keep crying and saying ki anyay hua hai and injustice, because really this is the space
You're saying
where
it's based on merit more than anything else.
India has arrived on every forum.
So
politically,
Smita,
we should not be left behind.
So Smita,
left behind.
On this issue then of on the reservation promise that Rahul Gandhi made today, what do you think of it? Is this doable? I mean, has this been thought out? I come back to that question. Or is this sort of something just been thrown out there?
Where are the jobs first? So that's of course maybe another debate. So first, where are the jobs? Once the jobs are there, then we talk about reservation, and then there's the Supreme Court ceiling. So that's a completely different ball game, and when and how is something that will come later. As far as these positive steps which have been taken, whether by Naveen Patnaik or Mamta, I must say that one is gender neutral. One, a man takes it, another, a woman takes it. The other thing is that Naveen Patnaik, a dynast, and yet he takes this really proactive step. And the other side, you have Mamta, who comes from absolutely no political background at all. Nobody from the family in politics, and she takes this positive step. Just goes to show that if you have conviction in what you're doing, regardless of what your background is, you are able to battle any kind of resistance that might come your way in taking these kind of proactive measures. And I think Shaina is right. The BJP should, at this stage at least, if Prime Minister Modi has done as she said, that they've taken so many steps towards women, and most important, which you didn't list, is making toilets for women. That goes down right to the grassroots level, or even the gas chula. Getting these things done for women at the grassroots level, making sure that she has access to clean water, to clean toilets. These are really basic things. If you can get that done, then 33% reservation or 30% reservation is really no big deal. And I'm sure that if all of you get together and petition to Mr. Amit Shah, he should be able to give you that.
All right. Well, I hope that we do have more panels like this in the future where Pinaki Mishra is outnumbered by women. It's good to see that on television for a change. So it is, like we said at the beginning, a good start. It's good to see that some political parties have at least taken that first step in giving more seats, tickets to women in the Lok Sabha elections. Let's hope that the main national parties and not just the regional parties, the Congress and the BJP follow through on that instead of just making promises. Thanks a lot to all of you for joining us.